Well, good morning. Thanks for getting up to be with us on this Sunday morning. April has been a month of challenges for everyone, including those responsible for our institutions of higher learning. We'll talk about the issues they're dealing with in a conversation with the president of Northern Michigan University. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, here we are, another Sunday at home. I would have to say this has been an April like I've never seen before, and I'm guessing many of you would agree. Hopefully we can look for better days ahead, as May is just around the corner. And as if we didn't have enough facing us this month, there was also the weather, which was not what I hoped spring would be like. I'll have some thoughts, though, about the joys of staying home later in the show. But the pandemic we're living through has presented challenges for a lot of people, including those in charge of our universities. Thanks to the marvels of modern technology, even working at home, I was able to have a conversation with Fritz Erickson, the president of Northern Michigan University. It has faced some difficult challenges bringing this academic year to a close and has concerns about the future as well. NMU and other state universities suspended classroom activity about a month ago and have been providing classes remotely online. I asked President Erickson how it was going.
It's worked out remarkably well. I have to say it's far from perfect, but it has been an extraordinary thing to watch how our faculty have adapted to this, and they put in countless hours in making sure that the quality of the remote learning experience, whether it's over Zoom, I think we've all become Zoom experts all of a sudden, or whether it is over more traditional asynchronous online learning. And so they've done an amazing job, but so too have our students. When we first went down this path, probably the number one concern I had from students was how much work they're putting into keeping up with their remote learning or online learning classes, but they've all done remarkably well.
I know that Northern has done remote learning in the past.
Yes.
In selected courses, but it has to be a real change for faculty if you're used to being in the classroom and how you have to do something different.
It is. And our faculty have found ways to teach things remotely that I never thought would be possible. But they've been very innovative. They've found materials online. They've developed their own materials. They've engaged students. It really has been an impressive thing to see.
And you say students are adapting to it well?
Yeah, pretty well. It's a lot of work, and students are kind of working through that. We've tried to give both the faculty and students some real tools with this. For example, at the end of the semester, our students can look to opt for pass-fail grades, or as we call them, satisfactory or unsatisfactory grades, given the change in the nature of the class and so forth. And they work with their faculty members, and if that fits within their academic program and their progress, and so they work with their advisors, and they have that tool is just one of many tools.
I understand that you gave students living on campus the opportunity to leave if they chose to.
Sure.
How did that work out?
It worked out pretty well. What we wanted to do, what we heard right from the get-go from a lot of students and families was, we'd like to stay. And so we made a very conscious decision about keeping our residence halls and, of course, keeping the apartments open, and to allow students and families to work through what a decision-making process that worked best for them. We heard from some families that they felt their sons and daughters were so much better off here in Marquette than back home because they had extended families living at home and all kinds of other personal issues. And so we've all worked very hard to make sure that we could accommodate that.
I don't know, but based on what we hear about local statistics, it doesn't appear that you've had a problem with the virus on campus.
We've had, as of today, we've had no confirmed cases of the virus on campus. I commend our students and faculty and staff. The vast majority of us are working from home. It may look like I'm, right in the middle of campus on a beautiful summer day, but I'm sitting in my basement. Okay. And so,
I am too.
And so, but it's been remarkable watching how people have adapted and have worked from home. And I think one of the things we've all learned that's, working from home may sound glamorous and a great thing, but it's a lot of work to work from home.
It's been more work for me too, so I know that's true.
Imagine.
One other question about this year. Do you think you will have a commencement ceremony at some time?
We are committed to having a commencement ceremony. We surveyed our students and the overwhelming consensus was, please don't do an online or a Zoom commencement. We want to do face-to-face, and we will come back to Marquette for that. And so our plan right now would be to try and hold that the week before we open, students move in the fall. Which would be the third week of August. That's kind of our hope. But we know we live in a very fluid situation, so we'll adapt as we need to. And if we have to wait until September or October, we'll do that. But we're going to give our students what they deserve with a real commencement.
When we return, I'll talk with President Erickson about concerns for the year ahead. Back in 2 minutes. Returning to our conversation with NMU President Fritz Erickson, while completing the school year has presented some real challenges, he stressed that planning for next year is problematic because of the uncertainty.
It's a real challenge right now, mostly because of the unknown. If we knew, what the outcome is, and we're watching national forecasts, we've of course followed forecasts in the state and in the region and what that means. And so all indications are we could be down somewhat. Although even that is hard to pin down because, if there are no jobs for people coming back out, one of the historic events is that if I can't find a job, I'm going to go to school. So a lot of this forecasting is really hard to hang your head on.
The only thing that's certain today is uncertainty.
Yeah, that is really true. But we have to prepare. And so we are looking at, and we have to prepare not only from an enrollment standpoint, but we fully expect there'll be, real challenges from the state budget and what that would mean for us if the state, if our budget increased to zero or we had a budget reduction, we would have to adapt to that. So we're going through some processes right now to put together a wide range of options, not to decide right now, but what we need to do is say, well, this is an option, this is an option, and this is an option, and this is the consequence of the option. So we can make, and our board can make some really informed decisions.
I know the University of Michigan just last week put out a report that the state would probably lose about $2.6 billion in revenue. So certainly, that has to be considered in higher education.
If that were applied proportionally, that would roughly be about a 15% budget reduction for us, just to give you some order of magnitude. So this is really about contingency planning right now, not knowing what we would do. Would we use reserves? Would we, need to realign certain academic programs? Would we, kind of go right on through everything that we do needs to be considered.
You have been going through for some time now something called SRA, Strategic Resource Allocation. Does that planning help to give you information
it
that
does.
you can use in this situation?
One of the things the SRA has done for us, and that was a process not designed to reduce budgets, but it was designed to really give us some insight into which programs that we think are that we really need to make investments in, really which programs we see as really being vital for the future, and which programs we may be able to just maintain what we're doing, and which programs there may be opportunities to rethink how we do those programs. And so all of the SRA documents are very helpful as we look at laying out the future. What we don't want to do is we don't want to just come in and go, cut, cut, cut. We made a decision 6 years ago that we would do a strategic plan titled Investing in Innovation. And one of the things that's helped us a great deal at Northern is we have made those investments, and those investments have paid off. And we, even in this difficult time, it's very important that we continue to look to a future and make the investments that will help us move to a bright future.
I had mentioned it on the show before, and it's not new with me, but a lot of talk today about, is there going to be a new normal? We may not get back to the way things were, not exactly at least. And I know under your leadership, Northern has planned for the future and has been very successful with that. But are you thinking about that too? I mean, at least noodling around in your brain that things are going to be different, and perhaps they're going to be different, and we have to kind of look at everything.
Every day and every minute of every day. In fact, at about 3:30 this morning, I was thinking about this. And
Right.
Those institutions that are really able to think about a vibrant future are the institutions that will be successful coming forward. And we've got a jump start on it because we started along the path of investing in innovation and continue to look for how we can continue to grow, and very much how we can continue to serve Marquette County, the whole of the Upper Peninsula, and the rest of Michigan. Those are very important parts of who we are. We recognize the important role we have in driving our economy. And we see, and even with all of the challenges that we face with this crisis, I still see a very bright future for Northern and still a very bright future for the Upper Peninsula.
When we continue our conversation, we'll follow up on the need for innovation and planning for the new normal. As we continued our conversation with the NMU president, we asked Erickson if innovation was the key to future success.
It is. It's a matter of rethinking what we do. We have many wonderful academic programs, but we may need to rethink about, so how do you restructure these in such a way that fits whatever that new normal is? And it's going to take all of us to do it. This isn't the kind of thing that, I can sit here in my basement and come up with, this is what our new normal will be. It requires broad engagement. It requires active participation. It requires great ideas. And I've been so fortunate that people have sent me many wonderful ideas about what we could do in the future. And I look forward to having active and vibrant discussions with our campus community, with our board of trustees about, are these things that we should embrace and move forward with?
I know one decision that you've apparently made is to take a pay cut for you and your executive team, at least for some period of time.
We did. We made the decision knowing that there'll be some financial challenges yet this fiscal year, that the leadership team all stepped up and volunteered to do this. This wasn't a mandate. That we thought, we need to make an important statement. And if we're going to deal with these difficult issues, it begins with the leadership of the institution.
And so at this point, would it be fair to say that you're looking at the options and waiting to see what develops, not making hard decisions about next year, for example?
Yeah, we're really exploring what those options are. And there's so many different options that are out there and available, both on what would you do to restructure, realign, cut costs? But also, are there other revenue opportunities that come forward, and that should we move in those directions? We get requests for all kinds of things that we may be able to look at. It may require some really different thinking.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's not going to be the highest priority going forward, but in America, sports are extremely important.
They are.
At every level. And, I think we all miss the fact that we can't watch baseball. And
listen, I was watching reruns of bowling 2 days ago. I'm desperate for sports. So
this is like the early days of ESPN. But, and obviously these aren't decisions you can make in a vacuum. You can't.
That's true.
You can't decide to play when nobody else is playing. But
that's right.
Are there discussions beginning at the conference and NCAA level as far as where you're going?
Very, very much so. Our conferences, we have two primary conferences: the GLIAC for all of our Division II sports, and the WCHA for hockey. And I've been on the phone with my colleagues talking about what can the future look like. How can we continue forward with sports? And sports there are many really important components of it. We often think of the sports as really about, what's happening on the field or the court or the ice. But it's also scholarships for students that are really depending on those athletic scholarships to go to school. It's also opportunities of community engagement, and how do those kinds of things happen? We're looking at, are there ways to tighten up? One of the big costs that we have with athletics is travel. So we're having discussions. Are there innovative ways in which we can do things that will lower some of our travel costs with it? But, I think it's really important that we find ways to continue our athletic programs. I'm as proud of our athletic programs as I am of our incredible academic programs, and we'll work very hard to continue that and continue to work with our conferences.
That pretty well covers my questions. Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
No, I guess the one thought I would think of is how much we've appreciated the community support that the university has. And we owe the community a great debt of gratitude. And we've tried to do any number of things to reach out and support our community. We launched the Wildcats Mean Business program, really encouraging all of us to support all of those businesses that have supported us, whether they're through our academic programs and athletic programs. We are very fortunate as a university to be here in Marquette and here in the Upper Peninsula, where we really do have the sense of being in this together. And I'm incredibly grateful for that connection.
Well, it's been there for a long time, and you've certainly built on that foundation. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk with me today. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, Don. I appreciate it a lot.
Challenging times ahead for NMU and universities across the country. When we return just 2 minutes from now, I'll have some observations on what life is like staying at home for an extended time. Are you familiar with the movie Groundhog Day, the Bill Murray classic? In case you're not, Bill plays the part of a TV weatherman reporter who is covering a story about Groundhog Day. But when he goes to sleep and wakes up the next morning, it's Groundhog Day again. And the same thing happens day after day, and each day is the same as the last. Well, I'm not sure what your thoughts are about what our lives have been like for the past month or so, but for me, it feels a lot like that movie. You know, when you work from home and stay at home, not much changes. The truth of the matter is that most of the time, I have trouble remembering what day it is. They all seem pretty much the same. You know, going to work, going to church, taking part in recurring weekly activities provides mile markers that remind us what day it is. It's not that I can't eventually figure it out, but it's hard when you wake up in the morning and you have no idea what day it is. It's also hard to get excited about the weekend coming when it feels the same as all the other days of the week. So as we look for some humor in what is clearly a serious matter, it's not hard to find. For one thing, we now have a clear idea of what's most important, not only to Yoopers, but to citizens across the country. Clearly, the answer is toilet paper. As news of this pandemic spread, and we all became concerned about what that might mean in our lives, the first thing to disappear from store shelves was toilet paper. Shoppers had purchased so much, there was a time when you could not find a single roll in many stores. Still not sure why, but it's true. If there's one thing we don't want to do without, it's our toilet paper. And now that I think of it, maybe I do know why. After all, the Montgomery Ward catalog isn't available anymore. Or how about this? How are you dressing each day? And I'm assuming you are getting dressed and not remaining in your pajamas all day. Are you still mixing a little variety in your wardrobe? Or do you find you're wearing the same thing for maybe too many days in a row? It's hard to get excited about looking good when hardly anyone is going to see you. It seems like comfort wins out over style at times like this. You know, according to a story in USA Today, Walmart has noticed an unusual trend. A company executive vice president said, "We're seeing increased sales of tops, but not bottoms." Imagine that. It seems that people working from home and teleconferencing still want to look good on top, but maybe wearing sweatpants or worse on the bottom. A police department in Maryland went so far as to remind people on their Facebook page to wear pants when they check the mailbox. It might have been a joke, but maybe not. And I shed a tear the other day when I drove by the gas station. The sign outside said $1.77 a gallon. Wouldn't you know the bottom drops out of the price of gasoline when we have nowhere to drive? It just doesn't seem fair. I'm sure we're all hoping there are happier days ahead. Let's hope they arrive soon. I'll be back in a minute. Well, that's our show for another week. Remember, if you miss it or want to see it again, it will be available at uppermichigansource.com. Thanks to Fritz Erickson for joining us this morning. He and his team at NMU have some tough challenges ahead. And thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you again next Sunday morning.